Hello guys, welcome to my podcast for how God becomes real, but this is not limited to religious about God. This is open to honestly anything religious, or if you're not religious, any of your comments about religion. And my name is Michelle Lin. I'm your host for today. This is a assignment for Religion 205, and yeah, let's get started. I identify as agnostic. I was raised Buddhist and Taoist. My dad was raised Christian in the beginning, so I do have some of those elements into my childhood and at my home. But yeah, and we can delve into that later.
Hello everyone, my name is Narangoo, but I usually go by Nora, and I'm from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. I am first year at DKU, and my intended major is molecular bioscience, and I am a Buddhist to some extent. Well, I am not really a very strongly believer in Buddhism, but I was raised in an environment where like everyone is Buddhist. So, yeah.
I'm Solangel Saneli Biaz. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, in the United States. My major is global health, and I am Catholic, and I've always been raised in Catholicism by both my parents.
I'm Ziqing Chu. I'm from America, DC. My intended major is political science, and I am class of 2028. I'm probably agnostic, but I grew up with some religious background. I previously attended a lot of church. I also grew up with a very diverse community, so I also attended things like bar mitzvahs. And then my parents are leaning towards atheists, but then we also grow up with a lot of Chinese superstitions, so we draw a lot of influence from Buddhism and Taoism.
I'm Emily Biaz, and I'm also a freshman at DKU. I'm thinking of majoring in something related to computer science. I'm from Alabama in the United States, but my family is originally from Morocco. I grew up kind of Muslim, but it seems like over the years I'm kind of leaning agnostic, but I don't know.
I'm Annagrace Thomas. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I was adopted from China by a white family, and we're very Christian. My mother is currently a pastor, and I currently am leaning more towards agnostic.
Hi everyone, my name is Debora Davy. I'm from Zimbabwe, first year freshman student here at DKU. I'm thinking of majoring in environmental science, biogeochemistry, but hoping to do a bit of economics courses as well. And yeah, I'm a Christian and full-on PK. My dad's a pastor, so yeah, that's me.
I'll also add on like my religion and where I'm from. Not my religion, my major. So I'm from Houston, Texas, and I intend on majoring in philosophy. And as you can tell, or as you can hear, we are all freshmen at DKU. So let's start off. And I'm going to read you a very systematic definition from Smith. And get ready for this because it's kind of long. Religion is a complex of culturally prescribed practices based on premises about the existence and nature of superhuman powers, whether personal or impersonal, which seek to help practitioners gain access to and communicate or align themselves with these powers in hopes of realizing human goods and avoiding things bad. So, initial thoughts, initial impressions.
It's a very long definition. It's like
But it feels like straightforward, accurate. Like if you were to think of religion from like a unreligious way, it feels like it is a set of like rules or like a lifestyle that people practice.
Yeah, it's trying to fit in all the religions and not just
it's generalization.
I think this definition of religion I think it's like pretty accurate to an extent because it does bring in how culture is a huge aspect, and then also that it relates towards, foundation of morals, distinguishing like good behavior versus bad behavior. But I think it kind of fails to address that sometimes religion is also something that is used to explain phenomenon that we don't understand either.
Mm-hmm. And an important thing about this definition is that it treats religion as something that you have to do in a cultural and community setting. So if you were to do practice any religion individually, or just your beliefs were religious but you don't commit to any of the practices, Smith would say you aren't religious. And
Mother would also say that.
So then I would say that I possibly disagree with the definition myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I would too.
I think belief personally is the most important part of religion.
Yeah.
But I can see how practices are important because it kind of demonstrates your belief. But I feel like for religion, it's more something that you do for yourself. It's not something you do to show any other people.
Yeah.
And I think it's more than just the existence and nature of superhuman powers. I think there has to be an external aspect to it aside from humanity. Yeah, and I think in many belief systems that would be a deity of some form.
I do also believe that for people who grew up in a religious background, you can become so accustomed to always practicing rites out of habit that you may actually lose your personal belief in them as well. Like, you simply do them because that is what you think you should do.
And that is actually a great point to bring up. I'm going to say 2 examples, and you tell me who you think is religious, or you would say is religious. So let's say there's this guy named David, and David has been born into Catholicism his entire life. Every day, every Sunday, he goes to church. He attends Mass. He goes to confessions every morning. He's constantly praying before every meal. He follows everything you would expect of a normal Catholic, right? But he himself does not believe in God. Would you say David is Catholic? Would you say David is religious? He does everything a Catholic does, but he doesn't have that belief.
I'd say he's Catholic but not religious. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. But I guess, again, it is based on your definition of religious. I think it's a belief in a higher power. What you practice, I think, would define what sect of that belief you're fit in. Does that make sense? That's not a good way of saying it.
I think I understand where you're coming from, but Catholic, it's a religion. So to be in a religion, you have to be religious, kind of, right?
I think he's just missing the moral part about being a Catholic. Like, it's the moral idea of being not just genuinely believing in God, but also being a good person. And I'm not saying he's not, but I mean, believing in God is the hope that is religion itself.
That drives the practice?
Yes. And if you don't have that, then it's kind of like doing work. It's just something.
But I think religion, what brings a lot of people in is the community it builds and the resources it gets you. So he can be practicing Catholicism in a community-based way rather than the religion itself. Practice for the habits and the community it creates.
I mean, I just don't think he's religious. He just does.
No, yeah.
He's doing these things, but if he doesn't believe in it, then I don't think that's what a true Catholic would be, because I think religion should be something where you should do your actions with intent. Also, because if you look at Japan, many people in Japan will say that they're not religious, but at the same time there's a lot of festivals in Japan that are derived from Shintoism that many people will attend. And even though you go to these events and you'll perform all your rites, basically, you'll sacrifice stuff, you'll do incense, you'll wear specific clothes, you'll follow tradition, people don't actually have the same belief as they did as compared to hundreds of years ago. So it's lost the meaning, but they do it as a way to preserve their culture.
So maybe he's religious as far as Smith's definition goes, but his motives perhaps aren't religious.
So as a group, individually, just our personal beliefs, we would say he's not religious.
I think so.
Okay.
No.
He's not religious.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna now give you another example. Martha. Martha is someone who is she's a little old lady who loves to garden, okay? She just every day she goes out to her backyard, she starts gardening, she's potting plants. And to her, that's when she feels the most connected to God. That's how she practices her religion. She at home, at heart, she's a Christian, but she plants, and that's her religion. Would we say she's religious, guys?
I mean, that's extreme, right? What does that entail? What religion?
What religion is she?
Man, I love plants. Man, I love God's creation right now.
But we'll say she's Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I do think she is, yeah. I definitely do.
She never turns to church.
Never.
She never does any mass.
Yeah, no. You're religious.
Does
No,
does she, like,
no
pray
praying.
while
She
she's
doesn't
doing
pray?
it?
She just plants.
Then how does she talk
But
to
she
God?
believes in God.
Maybe she
Then
like
no, she's not a
pets the
Christian.
plant and leaves. She's like, God, are you there?
I
like-
do think so, yeah.
If you're meditating and you're like praying while doing the planting, then yes, I would say that's religious. But if you're just planting and saying that's how you connect, well, the best with spirituality and like God, then maybe not.
I think it's all based on feeling. So she's feeling like the most happiest moment and most at peace when she's planting. I think that is part of it, because sometimes, like in my family, we all like cooking. It's all food at home always tastes better, and we always say it's made out of love, right? Well, that is like something that we as like Catholics, we consider like this food is made out of love. God makes us have this passion, and the love goes into the food. But also, I also take into consideration, maybe she's not practicing it, but in this area she's believing in God, and she's putting her love into something. And I do think that is religious. She is religious. Because you don't need to go to church to be religious. You don't.
But Smith would say you have to.
Yeah, well,
For the
Smith is a
community.
little delulu.
Oh wow.
Sometimes.
I think that it's not either case. I think you have to have a little bit of both. So I think if you truly believe in a God, he would change your heart to motivate you to practice what he says is good. And so if she is saying she's Christian, then I don't think she can only plant trees every day, and that's her God, and that's her community, and that's the output of her faith. I think it would have to be a bit more.
But doesn't that also relate into like how religions are different as well? Because
Yeah,
then you could
very
also
much
say
so.
that like, you know, this other religion, maybe it is a religion centered around nature, and it's about, you know, I love trees, you know, and you could sorry.
That would be like
You-
the I love
yeah.
tree religion.
Yeah,
right?
you could just say that
the
like
Lorax.
because you
Yeah,
just
the
like
Lorax religion.
you feel closer to your religion by doing this, then that's what works for you. And
Yeah.
I think in a lot of cases with like organized religion that there is like a very strong hierarchy system. And like with the hierarchy comes corruption. And then I think over time it also leads to like factions, you know, even like Protestantism was like built as like a breakaway from the Roman Catholic, which they deemed corrupt because their rights was also a way to just pad the pockets of more priests.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how she started doing this practice as a way of her practicing religion, because like according to Karl Marx, he's an anthropologist too, he says that religion is a reflection of the structure of the society. So in a way, is the way like her community is that she had this, like she got this practice of
I mean, that would be a Marxist belief system, though. Like,
Yeah.
the religion is structured around the society, so perhaps that is, in the case of Marxism.
I already think she's religious enough because, like, if you believe in a religion, then you see the entire world from your religious perspective.
Yeah.
So everything is your religion,
Yeah.
basically. Like, you could be planting and you could just know that, like, this higher being that I worship and respect is what allows me to be here, and me breathing and caring for all of my garden work is a product of that.
Okay, I'm actually gonna read you because like it sounds really silly. I know how it sounds. It's actually a real person. This is a real person. I took this away from a reading we had in class. Though I
Oh
changed.
God, what's her name? Martha?
No, her name's Margaret.
I mean, close enough.
Yeah. So Margaret, I just read you the part of the text actually right now. Baptized and raised Lutheran in a small town in Ohio, Margaret had not expected to be involved in church since high school. She was, however, highly engaged in religious practices and experiences, not connected with any official religious groups. As she talked about her experiences with healing, it became clear that Margaret engaged in deeply meaningful and moving spiritual practices that many would recognize as religious. For example, she described gardening as her daily worship service. She had begun practicing organic gardening years earlier in order to safeguard her children's diet. And because she got into gardening, she came to think of it as a valuable spiritual discipline, requiring patience, hope, and nurturing love.
Well, yeah, then that makes sense.
Then yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Then that is a
context it
religion.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm also going to take away, like, because now she doesn't attend church. She's not doing anything in a community setting where Smith thinks that you need to be in a community. You need this, like, physical, like, in-person meeting to actually have a religion, right? So, would you say... I'm so bad at, like, picking up random names. Ron. Let's say there's a guy named Ron. And Ron is just obsessed with bread. Really, really loves bread. He makes a religion called bread. Okay? And every day, in his own room, he'll sit in the dark with a candle lit and pray to bread. Okay?
That's a religion.
Would you say this is a religion?
That's a religion.
Guys?
This is literally just
Yeah.
Pastafarianism, isn't it? Like Pastafarianism, worshipping the flying spaghetti monster. And you guys who haven't heard of this before might think I'm like spouting nonsense, but it is a religion. That's
No, I
recognized.
can believe that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like
It's a belief
literally-
system, right? And
Right.
your practices are shaped around it.
It's like religion is like, as long as you believe in it, I feel like it, you know, it's valid. Like I could right now just be like, you know what, I love this pen so much, I believe this pen is what created the entire universe, so now I'm going to just worship this pen. And that's that.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
where Smith would
believe-
disagree, but I understand where it comes
I don't
from.
believe
I think we
like,
disagree with Smith.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe that your religion must be so organized as to form, like, a community. Because then also, like, that raises the question, like, are cults also legitimate? Some people would also say they're not.
Mm-hmm. And we can actually talk about cults a little bit later into the podcast as well. That's gonna, touching on that fun topic. Okay. Another example that's also a real thing. So, Star Wars. We all love Star Wars. Maybe not, I've never watched it. There is a community on Facebook of people who believe they are the next Jedi. So,
yes,
they
I've heard of
meet,
this.
they would meet in person and practice their Jedi skills. And because they would meet in person and practice their Jedi skills with one another, they believe that this is now a religion.
According to Smith, yeah.
So, it's like this. It's an actual group now, and it's this actual like Jedi religion group where they believe that perhaps in the next life, or they're gonna become actual Jedis. You know, thoughts?
I think it's a religion because religions can be bad and a little bit crazy sometimes, but it's still a valid religion.
Okay, technically, this is like a religion that's formed as a fanfic, if you think about it,
Yeah.
because it's Star Wars as pop culture, and then they form fanfic of it. But you know what else is a really popular fanfic? Dante's Inferno. And we also take Dante's Inferno, like,
Way too far.
Yeah, we, like, actually take his, like, interpretation of hell very seriously, even though you could argue that Dante's was just, like, he just wanted to be closer to his idol, you know, it's just a fanfic.
When I first heard about this, I thought it was a club. It
I
sounds
was
like a
thinking
club.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking of a club. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So I was like, what makes this different from a club or anything else?
Is that you base your like morals around it.
Yeah, and
That's
I
the
suppose,
difference.
like, I mean, when you die, you don't think you're gonna go
Well,
to
actually,
sleep
I don't even
after,
know if
right?
they have.
Yeah.
There's actually like I don't think they mention what they believe afterwards. They just do it as a group. Like they just meet and have fun.
I don't know, I feel
There's
like
more.
if I was gonna define religion for myself, I would say that it's a belief system which then determines a lot of what you do in your life.
yes.
Yeah. And I think for different religions, that'll have different parameters.
Yeah.
But I think the main basis of like most of the good religions is based off just like one simple thing: love and believing and hope. Okay, not one thing, maybe three. but yeah, it's just based off that.
Wait, what
Gotta
do you mean
believe.
by good religions? Can you expand on that?
Well, you also have Satanism.
When you say Satanism, it's a religion.
I don't know.
I would say Satanism is religion.
It
But
is,
what is
isn't
it
it?
about Satanism that's bad?
Well, from what I've heard, is they do lots of sacrificing.
Probably that.
And, like,
so
real
did the
sacrifices.
Aztecs.
A lot of
So
like
did the Aztecs. Like
Yeah,
they
I mean, that's
sacrificed. They
bad.
believed that blood was the most like important sacrifice because blood is life. So they would sacrifice blood to their gods.
Yeah.
But does that constitute that like the Aztec religion was necessarily bad? I don't think
Well, I'm
so.
not saying every religion's perfect. Not even Catholicism has its like. I think every religion has like some flaws, especially in the past. I think they can all be a little.
I think religion itself has been used to like weaponize against people.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
definitely has been used for a lot
Yeah.
of wrong motives. I think you could possibly classify a religion as bad based on the outcomes that you see, like the product of what happens within that religion. But again, you'd need specific examples to categorize each one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We'll just quickly just say, like, how do you define religion? Like, anyone can start.
I would define religion as a belief system that comforts the person in a way. Where, well, for me, I said I'm religious to some extent, right? So for me, if something bad happens to me, if I'm scared, I just remember what, like, I would recite a phrase that I was taught by my grandmother, who's really religious, like, who's really Buddhist, like, and I personally do not believe in God. But when it comes to, like, something that might harm me or I'm scared, I just recite it. Like, it's just engraved. Like, I have to say this, I'll be fine then. So it comforts me in a way. So I think religion is all about comforting the person in a way.
Does anyone have a different opinion? A different definition?
I mean, I do. I would say similarly that religion is a belief system, but I would say more than comforting someone, I think it also shapes your identity. It shapes your daily routine, your practices. And I think for everyone it also has to have an element of some sort of logic, like a reason why. And I think that'll be different depending on what your belief system is.
I think as an agnostic person, the way I see religion is like, first, that there should be some sort of thing that you believe in. It doesn't have to be a central figure, it could be multiple. But then also I believe that there's like a reward punishment system. It's like you believe in this religion and you do things because you believe there will be a reward if you do and a punishment if you don't.
Do you think spiritual and supernatural beliefs mesh into religion, or are they separate entities?
I think they're connected.
Yeah, they're
very
definitely
connected.
interconnected, yeah.
Like, they're interconnected, but to what extent are they interconnected? Because Smith says it's like a superhuman belief, superhuman power that you believe in. Something that's beyond, like, the human nature, but not supernatural. Which I find incredibly confusing. So, does any inputs on that, or?
Well, could you repeat the question, maybe?
Yeah. Do you think spiritual and supernatural beliefs mesh into religion? Like, if I were to say I believe in ghosts, is that kind of some type of, like, religious intonation in that? Or if I were to say, I think the boogeyman's real, is there some type of religious intonation or, like, thing that creeps into that? Or are they just completely separate? Like, can you believe in ghosts and not believe in God? Or if you believe in God, do you also then therefore believe in ghosts?
I think it's like the square rectangle thing, where like most religion has supernatural in it, but you can have supernatural on its own.
Yeah.
But like the other way, it doesn't work.
Yeah. I think the basis is on believing, though. You can't really see God, so it's harder to really have that faith. Well, ghost, there's just kind of not so much proof, but there is, like, lots of movies and all of this stuff based on it, and evidence and stories that we hear from people. It just seems more common to, like, believe and endure, while, like, religion itself, seeing God or Jesus is, like, not very common in day to day.
I think from a Christian perspective, I would say that the supernatural world or the spiritual world is more real than the physical world that we live in. And the physical world that we live in right now is a product of what's happening in the supernatural. I do think that we could potentially understand the supernatural better if we took the time to study it, like any science, I think.
It's interesting because like my parents, they don't believe in like ghosts, but they believe in possessions, like demonic possessions, but not ghosts. See like the figures and stuff. But that's mainly based off of the fact that my dad did like a mission trip in India, and apparently he saw a demonic possession, and so it's also based off of like that also shaped their worldview.
I mean, I think it's interesting the way you frame the question also, like, because I think that you can believe in supernatural without being religious. Like, I think you're possessed, to be honest. But am I religious? I'm agnostic, so.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, moving on? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Is God a concept created by humans, or is there evidence of divine existence independent of human perception? Should I repeat that, or?
No.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Is God a concept created by humans? Let's just first address that.
I think it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, my soul, no! Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, my friends have heard this a million times already. There's a psalm in the Bible, Psalm 19, and it goes like this. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the works of his hands. Day by day they pour forth speech, and night by night they sing songs to him." And I just feel like everything in our world around us testifies to a creator. Even the fact that I believe that I can understand science means that science has been understood, or it's understandable, you know? And yeah, so I definitely think God existed before humanity. I think he existed before time. And I think what we see around us is a product of his creation.
Well, how do you believe in science and religion at the same time? Because isn't there a lot of science that also is contradictory towards the Bible?
No.
There's not a lot of ways that they
You can only say the Big Bang, which makes absolutely no sense. We just appeared out of
But
nowhere.
what about, like, you know, like Garden of, like, Eden and stuff, and, like,
That's
evolution? Yeah, evolution's a big thing, too.
So many Christians
Like, are there
believe...
dogs in heaven, or are they just wolves?
like dogs versus wolves.
I don't know, like, I look at a chihuahua, and that thing can't actually be, like, surviving in the wild.
I mean, the heaven's not like this great wild jungle where everything wants to eat you, right? No? I don't understand the question.
I think well, basically how it was explained to me by my parents was that like evolution exists and like we do have evolution like modifications as we go through time, but it's not like humans go through that for some reason.
So we're impermeable to evolution in time, even though
Yes, like we were there before and we haven't really changed much.
Wait. So they're saying like we weren't like there's like a time period before we became like humans. You know, we kind of evolved from like this like apian creature. They don't believe that was like a thing.
No.
What?
It's like
well, it's quite a
Dinosaurs.
big debate, and it's something I'd love to study more. I'm not, I haven't done genetics myself just yet, but I do have a few doubts when it comes to evolution, just because one, and it might sound ridiculously simple when I say it like this, but if we evolved from monkeys, why do monkeys exist today? Like, why didn't they evolve? Why do we have creatures that existed prehistorically and creatures that were extinct? Like, we have them still today, but we know that they existed that long ago. I feel like evolution's a bit of a quick fix, but I would love to understand it deeper.
Isn't it also survival of the fittest? Because like humans we made it so far because we're not the strongest, but we have like this
mental capacity, right?
And then also we can throw things really far. Like, I'm so serious.
Yeah.
And we can also like chase things for a very long time. Our endurance will like outlast other animals.
I mean, I'm coming from Africa, and I would hate to have to try and outrun a lion. I would be finished, you know?
It's not about outrunning a lion, it's about the act of pursuit. But going back to the original question, because I think this will
Like how God is a concept created by humans.
Like, I think... Sorry, you were going to say.
Oh yeah, like only Homo sapiens are capable of believing in God.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it is a concept that we created. But
my parents think our dogs believe in God.
Yeah.
Doggy heaven.
Yeah.
I think maybe nature knows that it has a creator. It doesn't necessarily have to believe because it's a product of design. I wanted to answer your question about how can I believe in science, or how can I do science and still have a religion. And I really don't think that the Bible contradicts science as much as people might say. Especially if you look at a lot of the apologetic studies that have been done, they're not that contradictory. Actually, the creation story in Genesis mimics the series of events which happened in the Big Bang Theory, and I think people need to study it more to understand it better.
Interesting. I was also going to add on, like, how, like, moving past just Christianity, I do believe that a lot of things have been created as a way to justify phenomenons. So I mentioned this earlier, but, like, for example, like, Crete, right? We have the Minotaur. But that's also because Crete was known for having a lot of earthquakes. So then how could you explain this many, like, ground-shaking earthquakes? They came up with a Minotaur. And there's a lot of things that, like, this kind of thing also happens. Like, there's so many cases of religions all having, like, a great flood. So there is actually, like, maybe there was actually a really big flood, and then now it's incorporated into these religions. And then why are there so many, like, why are there so many different types of ghosts that kind of just like that make loud noises at night, you know? And that's just because like wind going through your windows, and like there's a lot of like similar like ghosts and spirits around the world, and it's all because they justify a similar phenomenon.
Like people trying to understand something they can't understand, so that they make something to fill that gap for them.
Yeah, especially like in the older like days, people would use that when we didn't have science. Like, a way to explain.
If we were to look at Greek mythology and like the religious beliefs of the Greek and Romans, they had believed that there is a god of the sun, there is a god of wind and water and hell and Hades, all these other stuff that they would like explain the world around them, right? Like there's Mother Nature, there's Gaia, and then like all her children, her siblings that she married and dated and whatever. So it's just, religion itself is just such a, I just feel like it's an easy way out of that. Not to offend anyone here, I just feel like it explains, it just makes life something we can comprehend.
Does it?
Well, it's also because I feel like religion also, Nora says religion is to comfort, and I also believe that's part of the reason why we have religion as well, is because people don't want to think too hard about like, oh, when I die, maybe I just disappear. But people want to believe there's something after death, because why else would you keep like living so righteously? It's because you want to strive for whatever afterlife that you want to, whether it's like reincarnation, nirvana, heaven, all these other things. It's like you want something as a reward.
It makes people want to live.
Yeah, and then also there's like another theory of like religion dictating like, again, morality. Like, you should do this because otherwise there's going to be a divine human being that's going to strike you down,
I mean, I would argue that's why, like, in the U.S. Constitution we have so much religion weaved in, was because religion was a way that you can manipulate people.
Like, to have like a moral code?
Yeah.
I mean, there was like a study that was done where they put like children into a room, and then they said like, okay, just take these little darts, throw them at the wall, and if you like get them in the center, then you get a prize. So they had two different groups. One would just like, they would just tell them, and then they would just leave the room. So obviously a lot of kids did what they would do, and they would just take the dart and just put it on the wall instead of actually throwing at it. Other one, they said like, this is a invisible friend that we put into this room, and she'll just be sitting on this chair. And then because they believed that someone there was watching them, they did not actually take the dart and just put it into the center. They actually just tried to actually throw it.
I'd say an interesting, from a Christian perspective, God has not made my life easier or more convenient. I think knowing God in the capacity that I have come to know Him has raised the standard of my life and challenged me. And it's really made me ask the big why questions a lot more than I would have if I didn't believe that He existed. I think especially the Bible and especially God challenges you to dig deeper, to search more, to research more, and to try and understand more than if you didn't have a belief system. Then you can accept life as it is, and it's a lot harder to strive for something bigger than yourself.
What do you mean by like these big questions?
What is the relationship between time and matter? How does a human being come to exist? How does or did evolution evolve, if it did happen? What killed all the dinosaurs? I still want to know what killed the dinosaurs.
I want the dinosaurs, guys.
I know.
Guys, we used to have big sloths.
Like the questions like what is right and what is wrong and why? Why are some things allowed and why are some things not allowed? Why is some things good? Why is it wrong to hurt another human being? All those sort of questions.
It's not wrong.
Yeah, what if is it wrong? All these deep philosophical questions that if I didn't know God, I wouldn't bother asking because it's inconvenient to my life.
Yeah.
Well, you also say that you believe these big questions, they help you like think deeper, and you think it's like the Bible and your religion, God, that helps you to think more about these questions.
Yeah.
And you said, interesting, I just remember you said like, especially the Bible and God. So do you believe that Christianity does this more than other religions?
that's a very interesting question. I don't know other religions. I can't say that I have studied the Quran. I tried to read it on the airplane here, but I can't read Arabic, so that was sad for me. But I can say that Christianity has enough evidence, factual, logical, scientific evidence, that I could believe it, and that I do believe it.
And then, as a Christian, how do you feel about the other Abrahamic faiths?
The other Abrahamic faiths?
Like everyone but the Mormons.
What?
Yeah. My parents are like fine with everyone, but they're shady towards the Mormons.
Hectic.
Like, y'all are doing weird stuff over there.
I think because Abraham, it really existed and it's a historical, he was real. Islam comes from Ishmael, Jacob, Isaac. So I think because they're so historical, many religions have evolved out of them. I believe that the Old Testament and the Bible is true. And I haven't studied the other Abrahamic faiths, so I cannot really say whether I believe they're true or not.
I mean, what is your attitude, per se, to other religions? Like, do you believe your religion is more correct than others?
Well, yeah, I mean, then I wouldn't believe it if I thought someone else was more correct, right?
True.
Like, I wouldn't want to believe a lie.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. But as far as the people themselves, this is something that a lot of Christians get wrong. But the first commandment is the Bible, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. So under any context, it is my responsibility, because God said that I must love people. Okay? So discriminating against other people and judging other people is never okay. That's not my position.
What about back in the times where religion was used to justify racism?
Yeah.
And it was used to justify, like, taking Africans back to America and to use them as slaves, and
Even
put them
current
into-
day, like homosexuality.
Yeah, and I'll actually touch on the topic of homosexuality by referring to a Netflix documentary that you guys should check out later. But just kind of like putting that question out there right now first about, like, even though all of our religions have these like moral codes of like do good, be a good person, love one another, love your neighbor, learn to forgive, learn to love, but in a way, a lot of the good that they're doing, or they think that they are doing good, it's really not that good. And we get into like slavery, yeah.
Religions are really stuffed up, right?
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to answer? I feel like
I feel like it's more like how people have changed religion to do those acts. They've used religion to justify those acts, rather than the religion itself being the problem.
Yeah.
I think it's a person.
The interpretation is
Yeah.
important.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, you can be a bad person and go to church, you know?
Yeah.
Very similar. So,
Yeah.
Because it's not like everyone a part of that religion is practicing that thing, for the most part.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to put a religion on the legal stand, then you have to go to its teaching and you have to go to its deity and, analyze that and understand that. Yeah.
And this was something that was brought up in like the past conversation. Can morality exist without religion?
Yes,
No.
absolutely.
No. Okay, let's hear this. Let's hear it. Yeah.
Again, so from a Christian perspective, again, this is what I believe. I believe that God is morally perfect and 100% justified, and I think He is the basis of right and wrong in our own hearts and by our own understanding. So from my perspective, I could never say that I'm more right than Him. I can't actually, but I can look at the product of His law, and then I can make a judgment based on whether that is right or wrong. I think God's the absolute standard, basically.
Wait, I have a question. What branch of Christianity?
Oh, dude, I grew up charismatic, Baptist, Anglican, so I'd say I'm non-denominational.
Non-denominational,
My faith
okay.
comes from a personal relationship
Okay.
and studying.
That's interesting. So then, do you like fully believe everything in your like Bible, or do you take a different approach? Because like different denominations do approach the Bible differently,
Yeah,
and
they
they
do.
also interpret it differently.
And that's been like quite a big source of conflict, I think, in the church
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
I don't take everything in the Bible literally. I think there's a lot of metaphor and figurative language which is used to help people who are reading it understand better. Jesus was called the great teacher, right? He used to speak in parables all the time.
Do you feel like with those metaphors there's room for mistranslation because most of the Bible and original or the English text of the Bible are translated from original texts?
I think sometimes people have gotten wrong in their translation and especially in their teaching. But I think the original Bible and I think God's word itself is perfect. Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Deb. Like, is it?
No, I'm loving this conversation, honestly.
Do you think, let's say me, Z, or anyone who would identify as agnostic, who we aren't religious, would you say we can still be like good people?
Can you be good people?
Can you be good without
being religious?
Yeah.
And religious is defined as having a belief system in God.
Yes.
Right?
Or any belief system about like reincarnation, death, afterlife, all that good stuff. Yeah.
I think people by themselves, myself included, are not inherently good. Has anyone read Lord of the Flies?
Yes.
I want to.
Yeah. So I think, by ourselves, we're not good. I think that we can make good decisions and we can do good things. And I think Genesis describes the creation of humankind as we're created in the image of God. Mm-hmm. So I think God put his goodness in us when he created us. And I think knowing him enhances that and helps us be better than what we are already. Does that answer your question, or have I sidestepped?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Lord of the Flies, also because the boys on the island were actually quite peaceful until they started believing into this monster on the island, and that's what stoked the fear, and then they started to go ballistic.
Yeah.
And then also, Otter himself kind of just hated kids.
Yeah. I always felt so bad for Piggy. I was like, oof.
No, I'm sorry, Piggy.
Yeah. No, but it is interesting what you're saying. Yeah.
Because I think, as an agnostic person, I think that I don't want my morals to be dictated by a religion. Mm-hmm. I do believe that religions are formed as a way to, help people become good people, to be comforting, to be, loving. Mm-hmm. I think, love is the most important part of religion. But for me, because I think religion has also that side where it's used to terrorize people and then also to harness for power, I think that's why I would prefer to keep my morals separate from a religion.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question about it then? So then, how do you know what right and wrong is? How do you know what is actually right and how do you know what is actually wrong? Is there such a thing?
So that's a great thing that we study in philosophy, actually. It's what would you define as good? What would you define as bad? What would you say is good? What's right? What's wrong? And in philosophy, we have different disciplines. We have philosophy of religion, and then we just have overall ethics and moralities, and philosophy of just that in general.
How much of it is relative?
Religion and philosophy?
No, morality.
It's pretty big. A lot of our legal system, our legal frameworks, how we bring justice, a lot of it is what we would consider this action is bad, therefore you have to face the consequences. You gotta get punished, you gotta go, serve a legal sentence in jail. Mm. And in that way it's kind of it's philosophical because you need to understand what's wrong, what's good. And for me, just kind of me personally, I'm similar to Z, where I just I don't want to think my moralities come from religions, even though I know religion is moral code is a huge part of it. I'm kind of just taking it from my understanding of the world. So if I've seen something that has hurt me or seen something that has hurt someone I love, I'm that's not appropriate, that's not good, that's not fine. When I see someone in pain or they're upset, that's when I understand, okay, this is not a good action. Certain things like that kind of taught me my moral code.
Yeah, I would add on to that and to say that does happen, but personally for me, I feel I still hold a very Christian moral code because that's what I was brought up in. That's where my foundation, my surroundings taught me to follow the Christian code more closely to just what I see in the world. So, and it's also hard that it's also, I think what we just describe as morality is also often set by laws and rules that are set by society. So it's not necessarily like yourself, it's more like society that decides the moral code.
Kind of just falling in with what society believes is right, and then try not to get arrested for doing something society would, tell me it's wrong.
And then the other question I was gonna ask is, how do you define love?
Okay, well, first, back to the first question, because I still had something to add on. I think also, like, again, relating back to religion, where you believe in a reward punishment system, that's because someone else is holding you accountable, which is this higher being. I think because I hold myself accountable for my actions, that's why I don't think I necessarily need to be dictated by a religion to determine what is right or wrong. Like, I will hold myself to that standard, where, like,
what standard,
I believe, like, it's just quite literally, like, violence is bad. But
like,
if someone... Like, because I don't want to hurt people. It's simple as that, because we have empathy.
But why?
We just have empathy. It's like an innate part.
Okay.
Like, why, like, when you want babies to cry on a movie set, the most effective way is just to make a baby crying sound, and then they'll just cry with you, because empathy is just built into our nature.
Okay.
So that's why, like, I'll hold myself accountable, and I'll see by situation basis as well.
Yeah.
Like, yes, violence is bad. Is violence usually the answer? No, but, like, sometimes people deserve it.
Yeah. And to go to your next question about love, unless someone wants to...
It's like such a corny question.
Yeah.
Like, what's the meaning of love?
Oh, I wanted to say something about in my social science class. I learned about a philosopher named Hobbes or something.
Oh yeah, Hobbes.
Yeah. According to him, humans by nature are violent creatures, and we need to understand human nature in order to channel humans to being good, to being in order. With like it kind of like he's saying that humans are motivated to. Almost he's saying that humans are to kill each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's their whole motivation, to live, to get pleasure from it. But in a way, I feel like all I was thinking about was that if humans are violent by nature, maybe religion is made in order to channel people to being good, to making them good. It doesn't have to be like religion is right. It's just like good for them.
I think because of our current like times, it's more modern, where we have a society, we have like our own rules, and we see how like life is supposed to function and be functional. Because if everyone was just violent, you would just get nowhere, and the societies and countries and everything would just kind of just like be in flames, right? It's just like to follow in with what society wants, which is just to be a good Samaritan, just to do good. And what good is, like, we can't necessarily define, but it's just not to cause harm, not to cause unnecessary harm, not to purposely go out of your way and hurt other people. Like, you don't go and grab a knife and then like, I'm gonna chop your hand off, like for what reason? It's just like what Z said. I think empathy is just innate. Some might have it more than others. It's just, you can see kind of how people react, and when you take that into account, like even with animals, you can see how animals cry out when they're in pain, and that is like, that reaction enlists empathy in both like other animals, including Homo sapiens as well.
I really like the idea, though, between both of you, like the strong religious and the one that is not, that, like not religious, because I'm actually in the in-between. So I don't believe you have to be religious.
So Deb has to go, has to run off.
I'm so sorry. I wish I could stay and chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye, guys.
I loved your discussion.
You too.
Yes.
We should have coffee sometime.
Yes, I'm so down.
Okay, we'll continue the talk without Deb, unfortunately, but continue where you are.
Yes. So, you know me, I forgot, so let's remember.
You're in between.
Yes, I remember that part. That's as far as I remember. Oh yes, okay. I'm in the in-between. I'm in the between. Because I don't believe you need to be religious to be a good person. All my friends back home, none of them religious at all. Like, they don't believe in it. And they kind of like laugh at the idea, not in a respectful way, because
yeah, in a respectful way, they laugh at the idea because they're just like, well, guess I'm going to hell for doing silly stuff as teenagers do and whatnot. And I'm just like, nope, you're a good person. Wherever I go is where you're going to. And I don't necessarily believe in, I don't know if we go to heaven or whatnot, but I do know, just something in me tells me that we don't just, like, die.
But I purgatory.
Yeah. Or I think we have something in us that chooses, and I'm not saying we go to heaven, because I don't really know I don't know that. But I do think some part of me believes that we just become everything, like energy. Because just you know how, like, we all have, like, a soul or something inside of us? It's kind of silly to be like, we go to these gates of heaven and whatnot. So I don't really know that idea to be true. But what I do know is we have a soul, and I don't think that just disappears. Mm-hmm. You know? I think that just becomes part of everything. And sometimes, you know how we say, like, we hear God's voice or whatnot? Mm-hmm. Sometimes that just might be, like, maybe it could be God. I don't know. Or it could just be, as Catholics, typically we have a strong belief in our family is always with us and taking care of us. So I genuinely, usually when I hear voice, I don't naturally assume, oh my God, God is talking to me, guys. It's more like, okay, my grandma, my aunt, my Biaz, my uncles, my cousins, somebody is there looking out for me, and which kind of leans back to, like, the safety type of thing. But I can't really go to coexisting with, like, the word God. And I'm pretty really but there's just some things that I only believe in when I've experienced it. Mm-hmm. And this is as far as I can go based on that. And I truly don't believe you have to be religious.
Okay. And we'll get into, like, the discussion about the TED Talk that I made you guys watch later. Mm-hmm. But because of, like, how the conversation was leading up previously, I'm going to ask this next question. How can the existence of evil and suffering be reconciled with the idea of an all-powerful and benevolent God? Like, if you believe in God, why is there bad? Like, if God loves everyone, he is this almighty, like, most moral being, why does so many bad things still happen in the world?
I mean, that is, like, a central question, is that if you believe that there's a higher being out there that's infallible, completely perfect, benevolent, then who's to say that he could just take away that innate sin or evil within people when this creator was making us? And then maybe we would just be in this little sandbox of everyone just getting along, and then we would all just go to heaven. Like, that is a problem. But I think that also relates to, like, this is a very, like, monotheistic view as well. Polytheism is more likely to see gods as more people like us, where you look at Greek mythology and they have jealousy, they have rage, they do all these, like, crazy, like, terrible things as well, and they don't get held accountable either.
So I've actually asked this question before, because for, like, years ago, I didn't believe in, like, all of this stuff. But so I'd asked this question, like, why, you know? And they told me God had said he doesn't want the people, he wants them to have free will, so they can choose him. They actively want him to choose him, which choosing him, I guess, in a sense, is, like, choosing being good, and I don't know, you know, whatever that entails. And they also mentioned, like, if he were to have made us not be bad and do all of these good things, then we'd basically be robots and he'd be controlling us, and we would have no free will. And that's exactly what he wanted us to choose, is what I was told.
Yeah, I was told that it was a part of God's plan and that he uses it to strengthen a relationship with you.
I'm raising my eyebrow right now because I'm just like, huh? You said God's plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of his great plan.
Which I can understand it from a sense as well, but at the same time, it's just, like, some things are really, really bad, but I also understand, like, he wants us to actively choose to be good, and, but, like, I don't know.
Kind of going back, I think you can choose to be good without needing God.
Yeah,
you know,
like, that's
what he wants.
I like to think I'm doing. Like, it's also, like, you know, again, with, like, spiritualism, like, why, like, in Shintoism, right, you believe that everything has a spirit, and then because everything has a spirit, that's why you should be respectful towards it. That's, like, Like, if you were to put it this way, you enter someone's home and then you just throw paint on their walls. That's not very respectful, is it? And then you just get kicked out of their home. In a similar sense, this tree, imagine there's a tree. You should respect the tree. You shouldn't just cut it down, right? You shouldn't just, like, tear it down without, like, any, like, sympathy for it. Because it's someone's home. It's the spirit's home.
In heaven.
Truthfully though, I don't think he wants this. The Bible has been changed so many times, from the beginning to the end. How can you say we have an accurate description of a Bible? And this goes for practically every religion. How do we have an accurate description? We don't. You could say we do, but we really don't.
I mean, it's also like, why do bad things happen to good people as well?
Exactly,
if it was such a benevolent God. And then also, you know, Minecraft theory. What if God is playing Minecraft and we're just the Minecraft world that he just decided to give up on and we just have no more God here? He's just on another Minecraft world.
Well, in a way, I feel like that's how I perceive God as like a Sims player. Like, if you know Sims, it's like we have your own avatars and you create little people and then like they have their own free will to do whatever they want. And God, like you, the player, like you're burning yourself down right now? Okay. Have a fun time. You know?
In like Christianity, we have the Trinity, right? There's God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're like 3-in-1 shampoo, okay? And like, you have the Holy Spirit in yourself. And then Jesus is like his Son, the physical representation on earth. And then God's just up there. Or down there. I don't know if it's up or down.
Well, isn't down like Satan?
I mean, once again, the problem with monotheism that I have a lot of times is that there is this one all-powerful being that also is supposed to be perfect but then acts petty, right? And that's the kind of thing that you don't see in polytheism, where like all these gods have their own domain, and then within that domain, it's free reign, you know? But then with God, it's like, it's just one entity and they dictate all. And yes, like, if he wanted to, he could just come down and just be like, guys, no more cancer. But he doesn't.
And kind of going back to what you said, like, why does bad things happen to good people? Like, his most loyal follower, let's say a pastor or something, like, really believes in God and really, like, loves God and is everything, like, God could have ever wanted a devoted follower, you know? Why would he, for example, and I've also been watching some, like, TED Talks, and this guy's a pastor, and he started doubting God because his wife had suddenly died in a car crash. And for him, he was like, why did you do that, God? Like, I still needed my wife. My children still needed their mother. Like, why couldn't you make because she had died at a red light, why could you have made the red light, like, end 1 minute quicker or something? Like, why couldn't you have done anything different? Like why do bad things happen to good people? Mm-hmm. Like, why would God want that?
Like, that's also what... Oh, you were gonna say. No, you go. You've been, like, so quiet, please.
Okay. I feel like sometimes it's kind of the opposite, where it's like, if we didn't have a God, then we really would seriously have, like, no answer to that. Where it's like, if something bad happens to you, like, your parents especially are always like, no, it's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, it's part of the universe's plan. And so it's like, it's angers you, but it also comforts you at the same time. Mm-hmm. That, like, there's some reason out there that you just don't know, but if you just keep on believing, then it'll all turn out okay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, because I mean, if you look at the other side of that, like, what do you do?
Well, then also, like, this also raises another thing. Why do bad things happen to good people? Let's look at a different explanation other than Christianity or any kind of monotheism. What if we took Buddhism, right? Buddhism has a kind of concept of karma. You accumulate good karma, and that builds up into your next life. So you could say that by Buddhism, well, your wife died in a car crash. Did you know you killed someone in your past life? Mm-hmm. Now you atone.
And that kind of makes more sense.
And even with, like, Buddhism, with, like, the cycle of reincarnation, like, being reincarnated as a human is, like, the best, honestly. Like, yes. You don't want to be reincarnated as an ant who gets, like, squished by accident.
I could be a snail.
You could be a snail on campus and you're get squished by a matter of seconds by me.
And then
so
you
I don't
get your
look.
band named after them.
Yeah, so, like, and then we have people, like, humans right now, and they're, like, let's say the worst person possible. Like, I don't know, Hitler, for example. He was here, he existed, he was a person. And to be born as a human, like, you have to accumulate some pretty good karma for that. But there's bad people out there, you know?
that's also like a different cycle as well. There's like different areas because some like do believe that you can just like roll a dice, now you're an ant. Roll a dice, now you're like a tiger. I don't know. But there's some where it's just like you're just reincarnated as human, and you just hope to be a better and better human in the next life until you eventually reach nirvana. But then also you mentioned Hitler, right? So this reminds me. Are you guys familiar with The Egg? This short story, The Egg?
No.
Okay, I think this is like very, very applicable to this whole like good person, like bad cop, good cop kind of thing. Where it's like The Egg, to summarize, is like this guy dies in a crash and he meets this like this huge like entity, and the entity is like, congratulations, you're gonna be reborn anyway. And he's like, and then he gets revealed essentially that every single person on Earth is basically one entity, and that's the same guy that died in the car crash. He's like everyone in the entire history, in the past and the future. He's basically just being reincarnated into every single life. This kind of story takes like nurture over nature, because it's like, why does he become a bad person in these different lives? It's how he's raised. And he like the reason why this entity is going through all of this is because they're experiencing every single life on Earth to accumulate experience and understanding to be a wiser being. That's why it's called the egg. Like the entire Earth is basically an egg. It's a nurturing pod for this like higher being.
Interesting.
It also like, cause like the man in like the story is also like, dang, so I was Hitler. And then the being's like, well, you're also like the millions of Jews that died. It's like, so I was Abraham Lincoln. It's like, well, you were also John Wilkes Booth. It makes you wonder, like, the way everyone acts can be justified in some way. Mm-hmm. Like, you could think, like, if I were to literally put myself into your position, maybe I would have done the same thing.
Did you have something to say, Nora?
Well, I'm supposed to be a Buddhist. Well, it's like, for me, I do not really know, like, certain like rules or some norms in Buddhism, but it's like, okay, so recently my grandmother, she passed away, but it's like, to be reincarnated, the person has to wait 49 days for them to be reincarnated again, or for them to have a good life, or like some other places good. Well, to do that, it's like for that 49 days you're supposed to like talk about them good. You're supposed to like think of them good. You have to pray to God, oh, please help my grandmother reach nice places, to be reincarnated into a better life. So it's like as if I am persuading God in a way from a different place, from like wherever the God is. But it's like so highly implemented in like our household. It's like everyone, my mom would call me, pray right now. We're with the monk, like he is reciting, you have to pray too right now, and I would just pray in the middle of the street. That's like, but at some points, like, I don't believe in Buddhism that much to just like pray every day for it, but I would pray in some cases, as in like my grandmother's reincarnation and stuff. But it's like such a weird concept, as in like I feel like we're an experiment, like it's just like, let's reincarnate this person again. But it's like sometimes I feel like I'm to a reincarnation, because like my mother used to say, you're just like my dad, you're just like my dad, and I'm like, what do you mean? And you're like, you do these stuff the same way when I've never taught you this way. Like sometimes in the bathroom it's just like a small thing, right? But my mom would say it, like point it out. And then my mom would like go to these other like people who are like monks, who are like, oh, your daughter's next kid is going to be your grandmother's reincarnation. That type of things like exist, and it's like, and those monks would like kind of like warn my mom. So if your daughter is ever pregnant, you can't like kind of like get abortion or something like that. Like not me though, not me. Oh. But yeah, like in that sense, it's just like kind of It's so weird. It's like
weird to like birth your grandma.
It's really interesting
Yeah.
that happens in your religion, because I know it's also the same in like Inuit religion, where like they believe that when you give someone a name, that name is so important. Like if you name them, like let's say you give your child the name of your grandmother. Now you treat your child with the same respect as you would with your grandmother, because that is essentially your grandmother kind of like reincarnated, re-imbued into that child. And that's also what shapes Inuit culture in a way. Like they never really raise their voice at their children, or they use like corporal punishment, because they believe that like your children is kind of just like a reincarnation of someone. So like treat your child as you would with an adult.
yeah.
Are they like violent with any like other people that aren't their children? Like strangers?
Because their neighbor, like, oh, screw you.
What if your neighbor is reincarnated?
I'm not sure. Like I know just like for like how they raise their children though, they just have that kind of respect, because that's how they believe in like reincarnation. Like, oh, this kid is like basically reincarnation of my grandma, so then I would treat my grandma with respect with the same way that I will now treat this kid. But it is interesting that like Inuit religion would have this, and all the way to Mongolia, you guys would also believe similar things.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said to like treat the child with importance, because that's exactly what the monk told my mom. As in, you have to treat like so to her, it's her grandchild, right?
Yeah.
So like the next grandkid that you get, you have to respect them with a lot more respect, because it is a kid that is reincarnated. This person from your bloodline was such an important person that you have to respect this person.
Yeah.
But it's so weird. The thoughts of like the reincarnated person, their knowledge is not in the kid now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the kid is a brand new being with no like
Clean slate.
Yeah. So it's like, why?
So if they were like the same soul, but like just completely wiped clean, do we even call them the same person?
Exactly, but
Nature versus nurture, the egg.
But I kind of believe that it's like.
So before we started, I made you all watch a TED Talk, and this is Lerman's TED Talk about how God becomes like real, or like how you hear God. And what do you think about hearing God's voice? Like, do you think it's really God speaking to them? Do you think it's their subconscious, or do you think it's just like they just want to do it themselves? You know, like who's to say moving to Arkansas is God's voice and not your own?
Well, I guess it's my parents, like, the reason they adopted me was because God told them to. Great reason. It was like right after a concert, and my mom like just looked at my dad, and they both like connected, and then they said that they both had the feeling that they knew like they had to do that, and so then they said that was God. It was like a innate, like they just like knew. I asked my mom, like, because she would often say, oh, in the morning I talk to God and stuff, and she did not give me a straight answer. She told me, like, you just know. When you know, you know.
That's kind of fun. Like, low-key, now
I
you
was
know,
like-
now that you know that, like, if they ever complain about you, they're like, I'm God's favorite.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
I agree. It's something you just have to you have to experience for yourself to really understand. And I mean, in some cases, sometimes I'll be like, because I can only say what I have experienced. So most of my thoughts, I don't think they are God's. Like when I say, I've had a terrible week, I think God wants me to go to Shanghai. This is the sign, guys. Like that's just not it. You know, but other things like I don't know about words, but experiences itself, like I know certain things, like when I mess up and stuff, I'm like, okay, well this is like, I don't know if it's God, but I usually tend to use like the term something is trying to like put me back on track, you know? It's trying to put me back on track. Like I screw up, I mess up, and I'm going back to what I should be doing, you know? And that gets my head back in the game, you know? Because sometimes I feel a little bit lost, you know, confused, and I'm not relying on God or whatever it is to tell me the answer, but experience itself, I usually ask, like, put me back on track, help me, I somehow can't do this, and usually it's all he
but it's like a very bad experience in order to make me feel and learn from it better. Is how I've come to like learn.
Okay, so we have to unfortunately say goodbye to one of our guest speakers, Nora. Bye, guys. Bye.
Love you.
Okay, let's head back to the discussion, guys.
I feel like a lot of like when people say that like God spoke to them or God helped them, it's more like He guided them into the right direction. Like even coming to DKU, my mom didn't want me to go, but then she went to a women's retreat and she came back and was like, "I'm going against God's plan for you if I don't let you go." So it's like He leads them to like the final answer, kind of.
Yeah, because I feel like when people are feeling lost, like let's say you're writing an essay and you have no idea what you're writing about. Have you guys, okay, this happens to me a lot, where my teacher's just like, go on a walk, just like let your mind go, and then you just spontaneously, you're like, oh, here's the answer. Like, I feel like a lot of religion is just that with God playing into it, where it's like, I think religious people just have a way in that, like the video said, where you're just trained to be more with your mind and more mindful. And so, like, I think it feels better that naming it as God's voice rather than your own voice and your own gut feeling, because it just feels easier to trust someone else and easier to, like, explain to other people and, like, bring people together by, like, one God instead of everyone's individual gut feeling.
They can also take responsibility off of you if it does go bad.
Yeah.
I feel like the way they phrased it in the video, it sounded more like an impulse.
Yes.
Like,
Go to Kansas.
Like, if I'm walking along the library, like a 4th floor, and I'm like, wow, it's so high. A voice in the back of my head is like, jump, Michelle, jump! And I'm like, does God want me to jump?
No, that's Satan.
You know?
You can also get Satan.
Satan's in my
Well,
brain.
I guess only Satan's in my brain, though.
Yeah.
Because, like, Satan keeps telling me not to do my homework.
Same.
It just helps to, like, look to other sources. Yeah.
I just don't know how they can hear a voice and it's like, this is clearly God's voice. This is God speaking to me in this very moment.
That's what I don't
Good at
understand
doing
either.
Like,
Yeah.
our brains are just so weird. We're just so
Yeah.
good at, like,
Just
convincing
tell.
ourselves of things.
You
And, like,
are the best liar. You know, your brain kind of just makes sense of what it does, and then it lies to fill in the gaps. Like, honestly, I'm not the kind of person that has an inner monologue, so I don't hear voices in general at all. Like, I don't have, like, an inner voice
same.
anyways. So if I suddenly heard something, I'd be like, who the fuck?
No, yeah, I'm kind of exactly like that as well. So it's just, I can't envision, like, I'm imagining, like, Jesus type of God, like, the beard, the curly long hair, and he goes, he just telling me, Michelle, it's time to take a nap. You know? Like, I can't envision, like, a man's voice in my head just being like,
Okay,
nap.
But you also said that, you know, when you were younger, that the shaman said that you were touched by God. So then how do you...
Actually, I've had many dreams where I spoke with God. And it's funny because I identify as agnostic, but when I was younger, I would say I was very Christian in the way where I would... Because people would come to the door. They'd be like, okay, now give me the Bible. And your mom's like, shoo, shoo, right? Well, my mom would say shoo, shoo. But I would still have the Bible. And for me, it was this, like, tiny little book that had a picture of Jesus on the cross. And every day I would sneak into my mom's room and I would pull the drawer where the book is. And I would hold the book and I would start crying. Like, there's things I don't understand why I did as a kid.
You have
And
bad juju, bro.
what the heck? So I would...
You're probably bringing spirits into this room as
And
you talk.
I would dream about, like, speaking with God, and, like, some of these like in a way I understand, like, because I had,
Did
like,
you ever randomly get pregnant?
what?
Without having sex with
What?
anyone?
No.
'Cause that's what happened to Barry.
You need the Virgin Mary right now.
No, I'm very much not pregnant. There's no children. I only have fur babies back at home, so nope. Like, no, but then again, like, when you're a child, your imagination is so, like, huge. Like, there's so much stuff I said as a kid, like, you don't believe kids. Like, your kids be like, oh, the aliens are coming tomorrow, and then you're fine, you know?
I mean, it is theorized that kids are closer to the spiritual world than
Yes.
adults.
Like, people also say that, like, newborns and, like, really, really elderly people are closer towards, like, I guess, a
Start
spiritual
and the end
realm.
of life. Yeah.
I mean, going into context of voices, guys, this might sound crazy, but this is something my mom has freaked out several times, but I talk to myself a lot, like an extreme amount. And sometimes, this is really interesting because my mom, she would look at me sometimes and she's like, Sol, sometimes I can tell you're talking to yourself, but sometimes you're not. You're talking to an actual person. And I'm like, yes, I am. And she's like, but that's creepy. Don't do that. Stop doing that. That's weird. But it's just always happened, and I'm not gonna lie. I still do that. I still talk to somebody, and I don't know. It's not like religious or anything. Sometimes it's just most random stuff. Like, we're talking about like books, clothes, just.
Maybe God's there and he's just like, yes, choose that top, girly. Choose that top.
But that's
the girl's girl.
That's the thing. It's just like voices. So the reason I always say I go by experience is because I have this voice with me all the time. Like, it's always in my head.
Who are you talking to? Who do you envision?
I don't envision anyone. It's invisible. I used to call. I called her in what is it called? I called her all different names because every day as a child, because I grew up with her when I was little. I don't know if it's a woman actually, but I think it's a woman because this girl, she's helpful. But so I would always call her a different name. I'd be like, today your name is Abby. Today your name is Mia, and la da 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 dee. And she was just always there. But I don't know.
It wasn't a ghost.
It's not a ghost because I still do it.
Are you bad, Juju?
No, I'm not possessed. I don't think a ghost would be like, oh my gosh, Solangel, we're going to the sparkly top today.
Like, it's interesting that you say experiences matter a lot to you, because I think I had many supernatural, weird experiences I can't really explain. Some, like, in the context of, like, ghosts and whatever, and some in the context of just, like, God. And I don't identify as religious. Like, I don't attend church. I don't really believe in God. Like, sure, there'll be a time I'm like, God, please, I want an A+ on this essay. I want to do good on my exam. Like, or I'll just be like, if I attend, like, a shrine with my parents and I'm burning incense and you're supposed to pray and, like, I don't want to talk to God. I'm like, God, I don't think you understand English, but I'm going to just talk anyways. Today, I'm really, like, I just, like, yap. Do I think there's anything out there? Sometimes, in a way, I do hope there is something out there, because when I see people around me who have experienced loss, like, having to know that they're out there and they're safe and they're with someone, and maybe that being God, or that there's something out there that's going to support them, it's like, I want to believe in it for that. Which is why I don't say I'm, like, completely against God. Like, I'm not atheist for that reason.
Well, again, that's also something that, like, Debora mentioned earlier, where I was kind of just like, because, like, if God is really perfect, it's just this one person who dictates what you should and should not do, and who makes that rule, also him, who makes the punishment, also him, who makes the reward, also him. It's just very weird to me personally that, like, you listen to one person because they're just the most powerful. Isn't that basically a dictatorship? You just listen to the ruler because they're the most powerful one.
Exactly. So that is also something this is what I always say, I'm in the in-between, because I don't think God is like that. I don't actually know if his name is God. I don't even know if this is Jehovah. A man, too. Like, this is all just, like, too much. I always say I only go by what I, like, have experienced. So I can't say any of that. Wait, what were you saying?
No, his name is Jehovah.
Yes. So yeah, I can't go based off, like, his name and whatnot, because I just don't know that.
Unfortunately, we're having our third person now leave because we are getting kind of late into the podcast, and it is time for everyone to go to their commitments. Very, very busy DKU freshmen here.
Bye, Anna!
Why do we do good things? I'm literally going to bring it back to empathy. I do believe that we do good things because we empathize and because we develop attachment and we love each other. I think that's really just the reason why. Like, I don't think that we do good things because we believe that there is a higher being out there. I think innately there is some part of us where we do things because we just are that way.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, you don't need to be a good person to, like, you don't need to be religious. You don't need to be a good person.
You don't be religious to be a good person.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like some people say like, you know, the first sign of civilization was like the wheel or something. But some people would argue it's like the first sign of civilization is a healed broken leg, because it shows that that person broke their leg, and even though we know logically survival of the fittest, they help that person get back enough to, you know, heal that leg.
And I also just think humans, like, we're so community based. Like, we need our own, like, society. We care about, like, each other, our own families, and the people around us. And I think this is, like, something that's been just ingrained in our nature. So, like, looking out for one another, it's just part of us. I don't think you need to be religious to just care for your family or to do good.
Like, why does isolation hurt us so much? Because we're just social creatures.
Like, that's when you put someone into, like, a white room and you lock them up with, like, no stimulation, no nothing. They lose their minds.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that we can explore more another day. But let's bring us to, like, the next and, like, final question. I'm going to bring up the example of the Netflix documentary Pray Away. And in this documentary, it features interviews of Exodus International, I believe a church. It's this huge program that focuses on conversion therapy. And it's to pray away pray away the gayness in people. And this was a huge establishment that was just solely built for gay conversion or, like, same-sex conversion therapy. And in a way, like, religion is supposed to, like, do good. It's supposed to be morally right, and everything is, like, God's will and God's intent. And this documentary, it features, like, these past founders, these past survivors, and these past, like, people who are, like, a part of it, and how much they regret and how much they just, like, one quote from the documentary is, like, the blood on their hands. Like, how do you feel about the blood on your hands? And they just can't speak because they can't look at it. Like, this gay conversion therapy church, it was just like, oh, God loves you, and God doesn't mean for you to stray off his path. God, you're not supposed to like the same sex. You're not supposed to be gay. You're not supposed to be a lesbian. And they will, like, tell you, like, you have to pray to God. You have to, like, do all this for God, and God will, like, bring you back to the right path. And these founders, they were gay people. Like, they were gay people who thought they didn't want to be gay because that wasn't God's intent. And in the process of creating this huge church, and, like, some of them are even married to, like, a gay man married a lesbian woman, and they had children. And soon after, that same guy, like, leaves the family, and he's, like, on the verge of killing himself because he doesn't feel like himself anymore. He doesn't feel like who he really is. And he's throwing away a part of himself to follow in this image of what God is. And he mentions this in the documentary where he's like, I don't care what matters, if, like, this is good or this is bad, or God, this is, like, not God's intent. I will kill myself if I don't leave this right now. And he's now in a happy relationship with a man. And in this church, a lot of people committed suicide. A lot of people, like, it was just, like, a horrible thing that people just didn't recognize the survivors. And it just kind of brings the question of religion. Like, is it really good? What does it do for the people? Yeah, it brings comfort, but why is it so harmful?
Well, I think that really is just based on, like, what church you're going to. Because my personal church, we had actually a whole, like, what do you call it? Like, a session. I forgot what it's called. We had, like, a whole session where we discussed about gay stuff and whatnot. And I like the idea of my church because we think education is such an important thing. Like, around where I live, or not just generally where I live, it's very much promoted. It's in everything you see. So it's just becoming a norm, you know? Do you think...
it's just back in, like, even now in, like, Western society, and, like, same-sex LGBTQ is a lot more open. It's still persecuted. There's so much discrimination against it. Being LGBTQ, it's inherent. Like, it's a part of you. You're born into it. You don't choose it.
God is saying you have to choose, but except that's not what he says at all. In my church, I don't know exactly their quotes and whatnot because I'm not, like, too indebted into the Bible and whatnot, but my pastor, he described that, he didn't say nowhere in there, but he said, like, if you genuinely love somebody, God needs you to love somebody. Like, love is all it is. So my church, they invite, like he specifically said, I don't care if you're gay or lesbian or whatnot, you're welcome into our church because you are loving somebody and this is your true person, and God wants you to be your true self and express your true feelings and love to that person, no matter who or what they are, because he made you perfect. And I love the way this is like described, because they say God made you perfect, right? So if he made you perfect, then in some cases, like I know Catholicism, we're supposed to, I personally don't, we're supposed to like believe that it is wrong and it is never okay, and you're not supposed to like the same gender or whatnot. But that's just not the case, because you're going against what you personally believe in this circumstance, because you're saying that they don't love the other person, this person of the same gender, which they do, and you're preventing that, and that is God's way of giving love.
And I want to expand a little more about Exodus. It's not a single church. It's a bunch of tiny churches accumulated to create this huge organization focusing on gay conversion therapy. And with this church, it's like Exodus International. They get involved politically, and in 2004, I believe, they removed a law allowing gay marriage in America. They took it away, and that was a huge thing, because these leaders of these CEOs of Exodus, they became more involved in the political scene, and they talked to the people in Congress, they talked to people who were in office, and they managed to overthrow this one act and law that allowed people to marry like someone they love. And it just caused huge like devastations across the community. And it's just like, it goes beyond just like this one church in this area. It was the entire country.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think a lot of times social practices become so intertwined with religion that it's used as a tool of fear and like fear-mongering. So it's not just like gay rights and everything, but this also extends to like the current ongoing like abortion crisis in America. Like, people say like, my religion says that life starts as a fetus, so you cannot like kill a living being. By my religion, this is wrong. But in some other religions, like Judaism, Jews believe that life begins at birth, not conception. So then you could say that they're like treading on that.
Yeah, actually, my religion is the one that believes you're not supposed to have abortions at all. Like, having an abortion means like you should actually go to hell, because you just removed somebody from life.
Right, and
I think that is also super wrong.
Yes, and then also, this also relates to Islam as well. Like, people see Islam as one that like suppresses a lot of social freedom, but that's not necessarily the case. If you look at the very core, like the Quran itself, it's a very loving religion. It's actually quite like, it supports women a lot, but then it's the fact that like these other neighboring areas, when like during the spread of Islam, right, because Islam was such a huge religion, it spread like wildfire through the trade routes. Like, these other tribes already had certain social practices like hijab coverings, right, and this translated into becoming intertwined with the religion. And then nowadays you see that like exercise into like a Islamic state, which is literally used to terrorize other people. And then also, like, moreover, even the concept of virginity, right? It's a social construct, but then how many times has it been used in history against women, just like under the guise of religion? Because like, you could just say like, because they're like, like, if you read like Tess d'Urberville, it's like this, it's this woman who was literally raped, right? But the fact that now that she's not a virgin means that she sinned. And while the man did sin technically, she is still just as much of a sinner, even though the wrongdoing was by the man. But because of religion and the notion of like purity and like protecting your chastity, virginity, she's now just as bad.
And I think that brings us to the actual final question. How does God become real for you? And if you're not religious, what is God to you? Or you're just like, when you think of God?
I kind of, whenever I think of like God and beliefs, I try to like step out. Like, okay, sometimes I like see it, like sometimes maybe we just look kind of ridiculous. Like maybe if I was an alien and I knew that God didn't exist, like we look crazy. And like people are like praying to nothing maybe. And like, so like, okay, there's two sides of me where it's like one side of me is saying like, if you just like look at like probability, like the probability of us all being here at the same time is like so tiny. So like, why am I discounting the probability of there being something beyond? But then at the same time, God could just be like a placebo effect, and like we're just so good at like
It's
convincing
airplanes.
ourselves.
If
Yeah.
you believe they fly, they fly.
Yeah. But so it's like I feel like there are things that people say was God's doing, but really it was our doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, but there's nothing wrong with that really. If people find comfort in God, whether or not God is real, like I respect that. But it just, I think the reason why my doubt of God is growing more and more is more because of like humanity itself and like how we're executing religion and how we're like treating other people. So if I were to become religious and were to be like, yes, there's God, it's gonna be personal and like not community, which is completely against Smith, bringing it back to the beginning. But yeah, that's my whole spiel on God.
I think, I feel like this entire conversation, like this whole podcast so far, has been very biased towards Christianity, or Christianity leading and
But you keep on
monotheism.
bringing up other
Yes.
religions, which has been really cool.
I think the reason for that is because I think, like, I just don't believe I can believe in a single entity God. I'm more inclined to believe in like a polytheistic one. That's why I do like Shintoism and Taoism, because it's like, it's about finding spiritualism and finding good within yourself and then things around you as well. There's one where you could put it as like Western religions or the Abrahamic faiths seek to find purpose by looking above. You think of yourself as a very, very small speck in the entire world and the entire universe of things, and then there's this one giant entity that hugs it, and that's where you find yourself. Whereas you look at Asian religions where it's the opposite. Why do you meditate? It's because you want to be completely one with yourself. You want to get down to this, like, you make yourself the center in the sense. You hold yourself accountable for all your actions, and like that's how you open your mind towards belief and towards good, and just cultivating a stronger sense of self-discipline. So your question, like, if I can like believe in God, no. I think I believe in myself to keep myself accountable, and I believe that, like, you know, when I walk around, there is a little spirit in the grass, and that's why I don't step on the grass so hard. I believe that when I walk around, that I shouldn't step on bugs, because bugs are also kind of like me. Like, they are also living. Like, I'm not a bug, but there is still also, you know, something that exists, you know? And it's like, no, I won't go into someone's house and splash paint on the walls. And that's why I like the environment. That's why I care about the environment. And then, no, I will not be a bad person towards other people, because everyone is valid in themselves. Like, I don't believe that my experience or feelings come above anyone else's. And that's why people should be treated equally. And then as long as, you know, you're not doing something that hurts other people, then you are a good person.
Yeah. And I'll add my own thoughts as well. So I know the question kind of like is phrased in a way of like, how would you believe in God? And it's not really meant to be like that. Sorry if that's not clear, but for how God becomes real, God to me is humans. It's the concept people have made. It's the thing that they believe in and they so fervently believe in to, like I said, like their entire lives are kind of dictated by their beliefs in God. And it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. Like there's plenty of people who have their own type of God in their own mind. Like everyone's God in their own, like every individual and their perception of God is going to be different from another person in the same religion. Like God to them is like a person that brings them comfort. It gives them security. And when I think of God, I just think it's something only humans uniquely have. And it's just this, like, in a way, it sounds off, but going back to the TED Talk at DKU, TEDx DKU, I think people are just good liars. And I feel like in a way, God could be called a lie. It could be a truth. And like, in a way, if you believe it so much, it could really be truth for you. But it's just something. It's a concept. It's like, it exists and it's real for someone else. And for me, when I see that, it's just everyone has their own God. Or everyone has their own multiple gods. Or everyone has their own, like, belief that after they die, that there could be reincarnated and something better. They could disperse into, like, to the universe. It could be dispersed into, like, nature. And personally, like, what I believe after death is that there's nothing. I don't think I have a consciousness. I don't think I have any mind. I don't think I can think, have emotions or whatever. I'm just gone. And I just cease to exist. I cease to have any thoughts. And that's what I think death is like. And for other people, this is called purgatory. And they don't want that because losing your consciousness and losing who you are and yourself is terrifying.
Interesting.
And so how about your thoughts? Because the only actual, like, I guess, current religious person here.
Well, like I said, I don't really go by, like, the word God because I like to know, but I guess, like, how he becomes real, or if he were to become real, well, it's just experiences and actually getting, like, answers, and this sounds like sometimes really ridiculous, but, like, there's been just so many, it's just too, like, my family, we've had just too many coincidences and too many, like, I guess we could just say we're lucky, because I guess it's what most people would call it, lucky. But in these circumstances when, like, somebody is dying, they literally, they died, and then they come back alive, and then they die, and then they come back alive, and they die. Like, my grandma has died so many times, like, real life, like, breath for minutes, not alive, several times, like, at least, like, 5. And she just came back every single time. And the last time she came back alive, it was, like, the happiest she's ever been. Like, she wanted to walk, and she could not even, like, walk. She couldn't even walk at all. Like, it was just absolutely insane. So, like, in these circumstances, it's just, like, God is just giving us our last goodbye. And he did. We had it for a month, and then the day she died, it's just the morning we wake up, we're driving her to her house, because her house is, like, a second away. Like, we didn't walk, but we're so lazy. But no, so we were driving to her house, and we see this sign. Keep in mind, our neighborhood, like, this just doesn't happen. We see this sign, and it says, this baby girl was born the day my grandma died. And this is when we wake up, and we were just like, I was just like, Mom, just a baby was born. But now that I, like, think about it, it's just like, it is just like, okay, well, my grandma was full of love, and she just wants to remind us, maybe this is here. But honestly, that's just, like, what my family thought. I still believe it was just a great coincidence, wonderful coincidence. But there was also something else that happened when they were finally taking her after a day of her staying in our house, because we had the ceremony at our house. We didn't go to a church or anything, because my family was like, we're hogging her. Because, you know, when you're at church, they put them in a casket and whatnot, right? My family, we're kind of like the don't touch, we want to hold, you know? So we kept her there, and when they finally are taking her, this was at night, my aunt's, like, taking a picture of the license plates just so we, like, keep in memory, like, they're taking her in, like, whatever it's called. I don't know.
Car?
Like a casket car or something. I don't know. They're taking her in that, and when she takes the picture, it is an angel. An angel in the lights, and it's so clear. I wish I had the picture. I can even ask for it, and it's such a clear picture of an angel. And the thing is that we always associated my grandma with angel wings, and they were there, and that is just like the most insane thing. Because I was like, when they first said it, I was like, guys, this is just a blur. This is just a blur. Because I always try to think rationally first before I jump to conclusions. Because sometimes my family's like a cloud, you know, like no. But then I saw it, and I was like, there's no way this blur could have happened, because it was just so well defined. It was so defined that this just can't be explained. Like some things, it's just like I just have to accept it. Maybe this is just what it is. So I guess it is just experiences for me. There's no voice in my head telling me anything, and yeah, just experiences.
Okay, and thank you everybody, and including the people who have left, giving them like an honorable mention to Deb, Anna, and Nora. And thank you, Z, Sol, and Emily for coming and talking with me about just religion in general and the concept of God, even though it was very Western focused. You know,